Om Sri Lakshmi Narasimhaya Namaha. Adhyatma Upanishad. Om. That Brahman is infinite and this universe is infinite. The infinite proceeds from the infinite. Then, taking the infinitude of the infinite, that is universe, it remains as the infinite Brahman alone. Om. Let there be peace in me. Let there be peace in my environment. And there be peace in the forces that act on me. In the cave of the body is eternally set the one unborn. The earth is his body. Though moving within the earth knows him not. The water is his body. Though moving within the water knows him not. The fire is his body. Though moving within the fire knows him not. The air is his body. Though moving within the air knows him not. The ether is his body. Though moving within the ether knows him not. The mind is his body. Though moving within the mind knows him not. The intellect is his body. Though moving within the intellect knows him not. The ego is his body. Though moving within the ego knows him not. The mind stuff is his body. Though moving within the mind stuff knows him not. The unmanifest is his body. Though moving within the unmanifest knows him not. The imperishable is his body. Though moving within the imperishable knows him not. The death is his body. Though moving within death knows him not. He then is the inner self of all beings, sinless, heaven-born, luminous, the soul Narayana. Superimposition is the thought. I am and mine are the body, the senses, etc., which are all other than the self. Through devotion to Brahman, the wise man should repudiate it. Knowing oneself to be the subject, the witness of intellect and its operations, reject the idea of self being other than the subject, identifying the I with that is the subject. Rejecting conformity with the world, the body, and the Shastras, remove superimposition on the self. The mind of the yogin perishes as it stays without intermission in the self alone, knowing through reasoning, Shruti, and experiencing that one is the self of all beings. Without granting for a moment even a toehold for sleep, gossip, verbal exchanges, etc., and self-forgetfulness, meditate on the self, in the self. Casting the body far aside, the offspring of parental exudations, as its status is no better than that of an outcast, and becoming Brahman, seek fulfillment. Dissolve the self in the supreme self, as the pot space is dissolved in the infinite space. Then, as the infinite, be silent forever, O sage. Having become the self-luminous substrum, as being reject both the macrocosm and the microcosm, which are but abodes of impurities. Locating the body bound, I sense, in the ever blissful spiritual self, renounce the subtle body, eternally be the absolute. Knowing I am the Brahman, in which this world appearances, that is, exists like a city reflected in a mirror, find fulfillment, O sinless one. Liberated from the grip of egoism, like the moon after the eclipse, full, ever blissful, self-luminous, one attains one's essence. The destruction of action leads to that of thought. Thence results the dwindling of innate impulses to act. The obliteration of innate impulses is liberation. It is held to be the freedom in life. At all places and by all means, perceiving everything as spirit, one achieves the dissolution of innate impulses as it strengthens the attitude of universal goodwill. Never should one be heedless in devotion to Brahman. Heedlessness is death. So aver the philosophers of Brahman in regard to this science. Just as a pulled up water reed stays not still, even for a moment, so does Maya ceaselessly envelop even a wise man if he averts his face from the truth. Whosoever wins absolutelessness while alive continues to be absolute even after death. Rooted in concentration, O sinless one, remain steadfast. With the vision of the non dual self, through unwavering concentration comes a dissolution without residue of the knots of ignorance in the heart. Strengthening the sense of self that vis-a-vis this vision and rejecting it vis-a-vis the ego, etc., remain indifferent to them as to object like pots and cloths. All things, from Brahma down to clumps of grass, are nothing but unreal adjuncts, distinct from thee. See one's self existing as the immutable plenum. One's self is Brahma, Vishnu, Indra, and Shiva. This entire world is one's self. Other than this self, there is nothing. After repudiating all objective appearances superimposed on one's self, one remains alone as a supreme Brahman, full, non dual, stirless. The world is the postulate, as good as non existence. In the one reality that is immutable, formless, unqualified, whence is difference. In the one reality devoid of distinctions like the percipient, perception, and the perceived, and of all sufferings, in the absolute full, spiritual self, like unto the ocean at the time of cosmic dissolution, whence is difference. Darkness implicit in it, as in light, is the cause of delusion, whence is difference in the supreme, non dual, and unqualified reality. In this uniform and supreme reality, how can the agent of differences dwell? In deep sleep, that is nothing but bliss, who has perceived difference. This perception of difference is rooted in the mind of the percipient. There is none of it in the absence of the mind. Therefore, concentrate the mind on the Supreme Self as a subject. Upon realizing the Self, that is, imparted bliss as one's own essence, there follows the savoring of the timeless bliss, that is the Self, both externally and internally. Of detachment, the fruit is knowledge. Of knowledge, the fruit is withdrawal. Experience of self as bliss leads to peace. Again, peace is the fruit of withdrawal. Without the consequent status, the precedent ones are fruitless. Indeed, cessation is supreme satisfaction. Matchless bliss is spontaneous. The express sense of the word Tat, God, has Maya for his adjunct. He is the world cause. He is characterized by omniscience, etc. He is tinged by transcendence and is essentially truth, and so forth. The express sense of the word Tvam shines forth as the content of the idea and expression I. It is awareness blended with the mind, the inner organ of perception. Only through the exclusion of Maya and Avidya, the adjunct of God and Jiva is the Supreme Spirit, the impartite being, consciousness, and bliss indicated. To listen, thus, is to pursue by means of sentences their import. On the other hand, thinking consists in pursuing its consistency with reason. Meditation is indeed the exclusive attention of the mind fixed on the import, rendered indubitable through listening and thinking. Concentration is said to be the mind which outgrowing the dualism between the meditator and meditation, gradually dwells exclusively on the object of meditation and is like a flame in a windless spot. Mind's modifications in regard to the self are uncognized in that state. They are only inferred as past. After quitting the state of samadhi, crores of karmans accumulated in this beginningless transmigratory life are dissolved by means of concentration. Then, pure virtue begins to flourish. The best knowers of yoga call this concentration the cloud of virtues, since it rains the flood waters of virtue in 1,000 streams. When the load of innate impulses is dissolved without residue by means of this cloud of virtues and heaps of karmans, good and evil are totally eradicated. The major text, which at first shone forth immediately now, unobstructed, yields immediate awareness as clear as the myrobalan in the palm of one's hand. The non occurrence of the impulse to enjoy, etc., in regard to the objects of enjoyment marks the acme of detachment. The highest pitch of awareness is marked by the non occurrence of the egoistic sense. The acme of withdrawal is marked by the non occurrence of even the latent impulse to enjoy. He is the ascetic of steadfast wisdom who enjoys bliss forever, whose self is merged in Brahman alone, who is immutable and quiescent. Wisdom, that is prajna, is defined as the unwavering spiritual mode whose content is the unity of Brahman and Atma, purged all of adjuncts. Whosoever possesses it, wisdom, without a break is liberated in life, who has no conceit of I in regard to body and senses, nor the conceit of objects in regard to things other than them, who is free from these two conceits in regard to anything whatsoever is liberated in life, who, in his wisdom, perceives no difference between the subject and Brahman, who neither refers to the Creator nor creation is liberated in life, whose attitude is the same both when he is honored by the virtuous and when he is persecuted by the wicked, is liberated in life. He who has realized the truth of Brahman no longer transmigrates as hitherto. If he does, this truth has not been realized by him. He is but an extrovert. As long as the experience of pleasure, etc., lasts, so long operative karmas from the past are held to persist. Casual actions precede the occurrence of effect. Never is this unpreceded by actions. Consequent on the experience, I am Brahman, karmas accumulated in the course of aeons are dissolved, even as the actions in dreams are upon wakening up. Just as nothing clings to space, so to the sage, who knows the self to be unattached and indifferent, future actions cling not in the least degree. Just as space is unaffected by the smell of liquor, though it touches the pot containing the liquor, so is self unaffected by the attributes of its adjuncts. Karmans, thus done before the dawn of knowledge, perish not as the result of that knowledge. They must produce the proper effect, even as an arrow shot to hit a target stopped not before hitting it. The arrow discharged to hit, which was taken for a tiger, stops not, though alter. The target is known to be a cow, the target is hit with full force. I am unaging, I am immortal. How can one know his self to be such? And lives that knowledge fabricate operative past actions. Then only is operative past actions real when one mistakes one's self to be the body. The treatment of the body as self is improper, therefore reject the notion of operative past action. The fabrication of operative past action is also indeed a delusion due to this body. How can the superimposed be real? How can the unreal be born? How can the unborn perish? How can the unreal own operative past actions? To answer the dull-witted who doubtfully ask how this body persists, if the entire effects of nascence with their cause are destroyed by knowledge, Shruti, with an outward eye, propounds the theory of operative past actions not to suggest to the wise that the body, etc., are real. A total plenum, without beginning and end, measure and change, massed being and intelligence, massed eternal bliss, undiminishing, with the sole savour of the subject, full, endless, behold all, neither to be shunned nor seized, neither to be held nor propped, beyond inert forces and actions, subtle, certain, unblemished, whose essence is beyond thought, beyond mind and works, existent, a plenitude, self-proven, pure, awake and matchless, One only is non-dual, Brahman. Here is no plurality at all. 2. Apantaratmas was the science imparted. He imparted it to Brahman. He imparted it to Brahma, who passed it on to Gorangiras. The later gave it to Raikwa, and Raikwa to Rama. Rama imparted it to all beings. This is the injunction in regard to Nirvana. This is the injunction of the Vedas. Of the Vedas, this is the secret teaching. Here ends the Atma Upanishad belonging to Shukla Yajura Veda. Om Tat Sat. Om Sri Krishnarpanamastu.